So starting with that, let's talk about buyer's journey a little bit. So your users actually maybe doesn't know about you, maybe has heard about you and is on the top of your funnel. How do you go about understanding your users? What's the sort of the best ways to do that? Let's start with Carrie.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, in my experience doing this previously, you've got a couple of ways you can do it. You can do it from the more technical analytical side and looking at those actual digital journeys as much as possible. Obviously, some things are becoming harder to view, but then you can also, if they're top of funnel, obviously this is harder to do, but once somebody becomes a customer, talking to those customers and actually having conversations with them about their buyer journey will provide incredible insights, which will help you then optimize future buyer journeys. So again, there's multiple different ways you can look at this, but you should definitely be pairing as much technical data as you can pull into, looking at heat maps, looking at user sessions if you have those as well. Again, just any tracking you have on pages they've gone on your site and different pieces they've downloaded or whatever it is, just what that journey's looked like digitally can provide really valuable insights.
And Eileen, I know this is another topic you were really interested in when we were talking.
Yeah, I love this topic. I mean, I totally agree with you, Carrie. Like ideally, you're really doing both, marrying some data with real verbatims and talking to people. And I think, on the understanding the acquisition journey side, I think there's no substitute for actually going out there and, maybe you don't identify yourself as your company. You just say you're doing research on this, space and people have made a purchase in your category, and just start with a really generic question. Hey, tell me, take me back to when you decided to buy this, this XYZ widget, and get them to talk through, what they when did they first realize that they needed that, and what was the problem they're trying to solve, and what steps did they take, and what did they feel like was important, or what informed the decision. And you're going to learn a lot about how people are discovering and how they're evaluating that kind of decision. And then once you have people who are kind of in a funnel, let's say you have a free trial, or maybe even they've made a purchase decision, you're trying to understand how to get them to certain milestones. There's also no substitute for interviewing some actual customers and finding out how things are going for them. But then on the data side, I mean, I always talk about SEO because I manage an SEO team, but you can get tons of data about buyer's journey out of your keyword data, because it'll tell you what are the topics that are relevant, what are people searching on when they're kind of in this problem space or just trying to figure out answers to the problem. And then also what kinds of things are they searching on when they're more in evaluation and best XYZ, cheapest XYZ. And then even to the degree to which people may have some brand awareness or category awareness, the solution for. So I think all those things together can paint a really solid picture of your buyer journey, which can really create from there. What's awesome as a marketer and really empowering is you can actually literally create a map that says, hey, here's the kind of marketing assets that we're missing, the holes we need to plug to make this journey really work. That's how I
having your customers tell you what you should do next is sort of a big theme of mine as well on the product side. So it's cool to hear that on the marketing side. It's sort of the same way. Nate, what are your thoughts here? Have you done a lot of buyer journey, user journey type stuff?
Yeah, too much to even think about. I think, yeah, in an ideal state, everyone's journey would be unique and tailored to them. I think that's obviously impossible, but if you think about the most extreme would be that. In the best case, the worst case is kind of batch and blast. Everyone gets the same experience. So as much as we can understand about the consumer, to start thinking about what kind of messaging we want to test. So any kind of, even the simplest segmentation of a new user, maybe we give them 2 weeks in that stage and we're messaging them a very particular way. We want them to get to, for example, for look back, I want you in the first 2 weeks to share at least one memory with 3 people. So I cohort those people out. I message them a million different ways to figure out what is the best way to get them to that memory sharing. Then they move into an active user. Now I want you sharing 1 memory a month is my KPI. So what are the things I can test there? I think the closer you can get to that more personalized journey, the better. And then to Carrie and Eileen's points on like figuring out those segments with the data and then kind of dialing in and trying to understand and talk to users and do heat maps and anything else that you can do to really kind of more on the qualitative side, understand why they're doing those things, and then improve those journeys that you already have in place with this kind of added knowledge that's less, I guess, easy to quantify with just looking at numbers.
So we talked a little bit about user interviews and actually talking to your users. So if any of the early stage product people are like me, when I had my product company, talking to users is really hard, right? It's really easy to sit back and gather data and then analyze that, especially if you're a product oriented person. How do you even go about finding users to talk to? Like, what's a good set either of people that aren't using your app or people who are using your app? How did you get them to sort of come to the table and contribute? I mean, can you kick it off?
Yeah, my pleasure. So big plug for user testing. That's a service probably everybody's familiar with, but fairly affordable. And if you set up your kind of screening questions right and your prompts right, you can get really good, thoughtful feedback of people talking through their reactions to things. And then, just as I already, I guess, an obvious statement that if people have already opted into, trying the product, you can put messaging in front of them or just like, direct outreach. We've had pretty good luck with that. I'd love to hear what other people are finding though.
How about you, Carrie? Do a lot of user interviews?
Well, yes, I have historically done quite a few. So in addition to some of the things Eileen's talking about, a couple of ways, excuse me, that I've done actual interviews with customers is went out to client success, sales, account managers, and just said, hey guys, do you have 1 or 2 customers you think would be good to chat with? And not always just because it was a good experience, right? Maybe they had a particular client they were working with that was having some issues. So we thought this would be a good person to talk with too. And so just reaching out to them saying, do you have 1 or 2 contacts you can put me in contact with? And then literally just reaching out via email, following up with a call. I found it's amazing how many people will actually respond to you, especially if they're currently using your product and really want to talk to you. They're using it for a reason. And so if they're loving it, they want to talk about that. If they're not loving it, they want to talk about that. And you're going to learn a ton from that. So just some really, you don't have to start with a ton. Excuse me. I know years ago, I'd heard this tip at a B2B marketing conference, and it was someone from Lenovo, and they had said, don't overcomplicate this. Just start with 5. Just get started, and you'll be amazed at how much you can learn from that. And I've applied that philosophy ever since. And it's true. Again, just starting those initial conversations really opens that up. And then, a plug for later on, those people end up becoming often advocates for you, and they'll participate in other marketing for you. And it's just, and again, they'll become user testers for you as well as you're rolling out new things. You can have a customer advisory panel. So it lends itself to so many other positive implications down the road that just having those conversations is so incredibly valuable for many reasons.
Yeah, and a big plug for something I learned launching new products at Adobe, which I've carried through my career, which is your person who seems like they hate you the most can be your best advocate because they're passionate about your product. So often we avoid those conversations, and they can be pretty hard. But if you can just talking to them and letting them just articulate what their issues are, oftentimes there's something simple you can fix or change. And then you have a lifelong advocate in sort of your back pocket, and someone who isn't going to just tell you what you want to hear because they just, are like the product so much, right? The people who hate your product often know more, or maybe dislike some of the things your product does, often know more about what you need to do to fix it than the people who love it, right? How about you, Nate? What do you do for look back in terms of user testing?
Yeah, so we did a ton I think there's different stages and different needs for that kind of stuff. So like when I first thought of look back, translating the idea of capturing the story alongside your photos into a product, you can do it a million different ways. And so as we were kind of designing what does this experience look like, I was doing a ton of user research and sitting down with people and showing them and seeing how they interact with it, and running different experiments, usertesting.com, a bunch of different things, tappable prototypes, to try and figure out, okay, what experience is the most intuitive, what makes sense, what do people like, what do they not like. And to your point, like, you get a lot of stuff where some people just hate it, and it's like, it's brutal to hear that, and it hurts. It keeps you up at night. But you also hear plenty of stuff that you can kind of extract and move in the right direction. Not everyone's going to love your product either, but I think hearing all of it is very important, especially at the early stages. So I used it a ton for Look back then, and then I also use it a lot. Like if you're launching a new product, I find it extremely useful in evaluating, okay, what is our existing customer base looking for? What are we not solving for them? And if you have a decent customer base and you're considering, like, how do we expand? How do we add value? I think tapping into that and interviewing them and talking to them about what they want, what they like, what they don't like, can make life a lot easier than just kind of sitting in a room and thinking you know the answer to the question when really we have no idea.
Right. And from a B2B perspective, if you're in B2B sales, oftentimes you can reach out to an advocate at a company or a client and say, hey, I just want to sit down and pick your brain for an hour. You know, it's not about selling you more. I'm really enjoying the relationship, but can you help me out here? Right. And it's amazing how kind and helpful people tend to be, especially if they're already clients. Right. So the other thing I would recommend is if you can actually sit and watch your users use your app and hear them talk about your app, especially in a more formal setting, maybe where you're paying someone to do it, you learn so much so quickly about how much people love the features you didn't even know people would like, or hate the features you thought people would love. So that's deeply valuable, as well as watching people use your product. So to Nate, to your point, tappable prototypes can help you get there much, much sooner. But I was behind the glass when we were launching Lightroom and people were swearing at it. And that is really valuable information, as hard as it is to hear. So get that thick skin and actually talk to your users, and then figure out what they don't like about your app, or what on the website. Heat maps are another great example. Are they tapping on things? It's simple, right? Are they tapping on things that aren't links, right? Are they missing the big buttons for some reason? And sometimes it can be very tactical like that. And sometimes they aren't using this entire module. Why did we build it? Maybe we should stop investing in it.